The Astoria Hotel's ballroom glittered like a jewel box that had swallowed Manhattan whole. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, their light cascading over green velvet tables where poker chips represented more money than most families earned in a year. The air tasted of Cuban cigars, French perfume, and the particular confidence that only wealth could purchase. Clara Ellison moved through this world like a shadow given human form, 16 years old. Dressed in the same black and white uniform as her mother, she carried a tray of champagne flutes that cost more than her weekly groceries. The guests didn't look at her. They looked through her, past her, around her, as if she were part of the furniture, necessary but unworthy of acknowledgement. She'd learned to accept this invisibility. It paid the rent on their cramped Queen's apartment. It kept food on their table. It was the price of survival in a city that devoured the poor without ceremony. "More champagne, sir?" Clara asked softly, approaching a cluster of men in $1,000 suits. The nearest one snapped his fingers without turning his head. Like calling a dog, Clara served in silence, swallowing the humiliation that had become as familiar as breathing. She did this every night, for her mother, for the dream of someday not having to bow her head to men who treated her like furniture. Across the ballroom, Lance Devereaux laughed too loud. His voice carried like thunder, demanding attention, consuming space. Three-time poker champion, face on magazine covers, sponsored by watch companies whose timepieces cost more than cars. Lance didn't just play cards. He played with people, and he loved winning more than anything else in his life. Clara was passing behind him when it happened. A drunk guest stumbled, shoving her forward. The tray tilted. A glass of $1,000 scotch tumbled in slow motion, its amber contents splashing directly onto Lance Devereaux's handmade Italian shoes. The ballroom froze. "You idiot!" Lance shot to his feet, the vein in his neck bulging. "Do you have any idea what these cost?" Clara dropped to her knees immediately, grabbing napkins, trying to clean the damage. Her hands trembled. "I'm so sorry, sir. It was an accident." An accident?" Lance cut her off, his voice rising to performance level. He looked around, ensuring everyone was watching. "This is what happens when they hire this kind of people." Rosa Ellison. Clara's mother rushed over from where she'd been supervising the serving staff. "Please, Mr. Devereaux, I'll pay for the shoes. It was my fault. I should have—" "Your fault," Lance laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Of course it's your fault. You and this incompetent daughter of yours." Clara stood slowly. Something inside her, something inherited from a grandfather who'd faced down generals and dictators with nothing but logic, began to awaken. She looked Lance Devereaux directly in the eyes and didn't look away. "Sir, may I ask you a question?" Lance blinked, surprised. Nobody expected the cleaning lady's daughter to speak. "What? You play poker professionally?" "Correct. Obviously." He crossed his arms, intrigued despite himself. "Then you must be very good at reading people, at knowing when someone's bluffing." Lance smiled, a shark smile. "I'm the best." "Perfect." Clara took a deep breath. "Then let's make a bet." The ballroom exploded in murmurs. "A bet?" Lance laughed loud. "You, a child who can't even hold a tray, wants to bet with me?" "Yes." Clara's voice was steady now. "A poker match. Texas Hold'em. Here now." Rosa grabbed her daughter's arm. "Clara, don't—" But Clara kept her eyes on Lance. "If I win, you donate $200,000 to St. Teresa's Children's Home. They're orphans like I almost was. And if you lose—" Lance was enjoying this free entertainment. "If I lose—" Clara swallowed hard. "My mother loses her job, and we leave the company housing. No severance. No references, nothing." "Clara, no." Rosa had gone pale. "You can't bet our lives." But Lance was already smiling, that cruel smile of someone who knows they're about to crush an insect. "We have a deal. Little girl," he extended his hand, "get ready to live on the street." Clara shook his hand, and in that moment she whispered something only he could hear. "When a man believes he's above the rules, that's when he's already lost the game." Lance frowned, but it was too late. The bet was made, and Clara Ellison, the invisible girl of the trays and uniforms, was about to show Lance Devereux and everyone there that the real game was never about cards. It had always been about who controls the fear. Marcus Chen, the event organizer, stepped forward, a Chinese-American businessman in his 50s, known for his integrity. He studied both their faces. "This is madness," he murmured to Clara. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." Clara looked at her mother, pale in the corner. "For her, and for everyone he's ever humiliated." Marcus sighed, but there was admiration in his eyes. "Then let it be fair and clean." He looked at Lance with severity. "No tricks." Lance just laughed. "I don't need tricks to beat a child." A poker table was set up in the center of the ballroom. The guests formed a circle, some laughing, others uncomfortable. Nobody believed this would really happen, except Clara. She sat in the chair across from Lance with the posture of a queen, not hunched, not scared, present. Marcus shuffled the deck with professional precision. The room fell into absolute silence, and the game that would change everything began. Marcus dealt the cards with mechanical precision, 300 pairs of eyes fixed on the center table. The chandelier light seemed to dim, focusing everything on the green velvet surface, where Clara's entire life now rested. First hand, Clara received a pair of sevens. She bet modestly. Lance had 10 and Jack. He bet high, aggressive, making a show of sliding his chips forward. Clara folded without hesitation. Lance won and performed, stacking chips with exaggerated flourish. The audience laughed nervously. Rosa closed her eyes, praying to saints she'd stopped believing in years ago. Second hand, Clara received king and 9. Lance had a pair of queens. He raised dramatically, smiling at the crowd like a circus performer. Clara watched him carefully. He was expansive, conversational, making jokes, she noted mentally. When he's overconfident, he's usually bluffing or trying to intimidate. She folded again. Lance celebrated as if he'd won a world championship final. "You're getting scared, little girl," he taunted. Clara didn't respond, just observed. Her eyes weren't on Lance's cards, they were on his face, his hands, the rhythm of his breathing. Third hand, Clara received ace and 8. The flop brought 2 aces and a 5. Clara had 3 of a kind. Lance had a pair of kings. For the first time, Lance went quiet. He breathed deeply and bet moderately. No show, no jokes. Clara recognized the pattern confirming itself. When he has a truly strong hand, he becomes contained. She went all in. Lance paid confidently. He won with a straight on the river. Clara lost almost half her chips. The audience murmured. Clara was being destroyed. Vanessa Monroe, the event organizer who'd been watching from the sidelines, smiled with relief. Rosa was pale, trembling, but Clara wasn't desperate. She was studying every gesture, every micro-expression, every breathing pattern. Her grandfather's voice echoed in memory. "Poker isn't about cards, Clara. It's about people. Learn to read the signals they give without realizing the tells, and you'll never lose." Fourth hand. Marcus distributed the cards. Clara looked at hers, 7 and 2 of different suits, mathematically the worst possible starting hand in Texas Hold'em. Lance looked at his and made that small. Contained smile, silent, the smile of someone holding pure gold. Clara knew he had something exceptional, probably pocket aces or kings, and she had garbage. Everyone expected her to fold, save what remained. Instead, Clara pushed all her remaining chips to the center. "All in!" The ballroom erupted in exclamations. "She's lost her mind!" someone shouted. Lance blinked, then laughed, a laugh of disbelief. "You're bluffing. You have to be." "Call and find out." Clara's voice was ice. Lance looked at his cards again. Pocket aces. Impossible to lose. Mathematically impossible. "I call." He flipped his cards. "Pair of aces!" The audience applauded. Clara flipped hers. 7 and 2, shocked silence. "You!" Lance was incredulous. "You bet everything with that." "Yes!" Clara leaned forward. "Because I wasn't playing cards." "Mr. Devereux, I was playing you." Marcus flipped the turn. The fourth community card, King of Clubs, the audience groaned. Now there were 3 kings on the table. Lance's hand got even better. 2 pairs. Aces and kings. Clara still had nothing. Lance exploded in laughter. You're an idiot, an arrogant idiot. He stood up, slamming the table. You just threw your life and your mother's in the trash because of ego. Rosa was crying in the corner. Marcus had gone pale, but Clara remained calm. There's still 1 card. It doesn't matter what card it is, Lance was shouting now. You need a king, and what are the chances? Marcus flipped the river. The final card, King of Diamonds. Time stopped. 4 kings on the table. Clara had a 7 in hand, her final hand. 4 of-a-kind kings with 7 kicker. Lance had an ace in hand, his final hand. 4 of-a-kind kings with ace kicker. Lance had won. The ballroom exploded in mixed celebration. Lance danced, screamed, pointed at Clara. I won, Actually, Clara's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. You didn't win anything. Lance stopped. What? Clara stood, and when she spoke, her voice reached every corner of the ballroom. Mr. Devereux, do you have authorization to fire my mother? What? Of course I do. You're a sponsored player, a guest of this hotel. Clara looked at Marcus. Who has the power to fire employees here? Marcus blinked, then understood. I do. Only me. The blood drained from Lance's face. So, Clara continued, you bet something that wasn't yours, that Mr. Devereux isn't a bet, it's fraud. The ballroom fell into sepulchral silence. Which means, Clara looked at Marcus, this match is invalid. And Mr. Devereux just tried to defraud me in front of 300 witnesses. Lance was white, trembling. I didn't. This was just entertainment. Entertainment? Marcus's voice was cold. You humiliated a child, threatened an employee, and attempted to defraud a public bet. He turned to Clara. The match is nullified. You lost nothing. Actually, Clara smiled for the first time, I won everything. She looked at Lance. Because now everyone here knows who you really are. The video spread like wildfire, not about who won the game, but about who lost their dignity. The footage, recorded on dozens of smartphones, flooded every social media platform. Lance Devereux being unmasked by a teenager. Lance shouting, Lance fleeing the ballroom when he realized everyone was staring at him with contempt. By morning, 3 of his sponsors had cancelled contracts. By afternoon, the World Poker Tour announced an investigation into unethical conduct. By evening, Lance Devereux was barricaded in his penthouse apartment, watching his career crumble in real time. And all because of a girl, a damn invisible girl. He punched the wall. He needed to fix this, destroy Clara before she destroyed what remained of him. The answer came from where he least expected. Vanessa Monroe. Vanessa was one of the event organizers, beautiful, sophisticated, ambitious, and secretly in love with Lance for months. An unrequited passion that left her furious. She knocked on his door that night. You're pathetic, she said, entering uninvited. What do you want? Lance was drinking whiskey straight from the bottle. I want to help you. Vanessa sat down, crossing her legs. But first you're going to listen. She threw a folder on the table. And full of information. Clara Ellison, 16 years old, father deceased, lives with her mother in company housing, scholarship student at private school. Vanessa smiled. And apparently a genius at cards. I know all this, Lance grumbled. But you don't know this. Vanessa showed a photo, Clara talking with Marcus Chen outside the hotel, smiling. So what? Marcus is planning to give her a scholarship. Vanessa leaned in. Full ride. To Harvard, Princeton, any university she wants. Lance squeezed his glass so hard it cracked. She's going to become a celebrity. Vanessa continued. The poor girl who humiliated the champion. They'll make movies about her, books. She'll have everything. And I'll have nothing. Exactly, Vanessa smiled. Unless we destroy her first. Lance looked at her. How? Simple. Vanessa pulled out another photo. Clara with her mother. The mother is the weak point. If we take the mother out of the picture, Clara crumbles. Take out how? Vanessa stood, walking to the window. "Leave it to me." Meanwhile, in the small Ellison apartment, Clara couldn't sleep. The adrenaline from the night still coursed through her veins, but it wasn't victory she felt. It was fear. Fear that Lance would retaliate. Fear that her mother would pay the price. Fear that she'd underestimated how dangerous it was to humiliate a powerful man. Rosa entered the room, bringing tea. "You should be celebrating," she said softly. "I can't." Clara looked out the window. "I humiliated him, Mom, in front of everyone. He won't forget that." "He deserved it, I know, but—" Clara breathed deeply. "Grandpa used to say that victory without vigilance is an invitation to disaster." Rosa stroked her daughter's hair. "Your grandfather also said that injustice without response is an invitation to oppression." Clara smiled weakly. "He had a phrase for everything, didn't he?" "He did." Rosa kissed her forehead. "And he'd be very proud of you today." Clara wanted to believe that. But something in her, that part inherited from the Colonel, the part that read invisible signals, whispered a warning. The game wasn't over yet. In fact, it was just beginning. At Clara's school the next day, everything had changed. Jaden Torres, a 17-year-old debate team captain who'd always admired her from afar, finally approached her between classes. "That was incredible what you did," he said, genuine warmth in his voice. But Brittany Winchester, daughter of an executive, passed by with her entourage. "You humiliated a man publicly, Clara. That's not victory, that's cruelty." Clara felt the weight of judgment from all sides. Some treated her as a hero, others as a spectacle, none as just Clara. She walked home alone, the city's noise feeling louder than usual. The subway smelled of bodies and metal. She thought about her grandfather's lessons, wondering if she'd applied them correctly or if she'd just created a monster she couldn't control. When she arrived at their apartment building, Ivan Sokolov, the hotel's head of security, a 40-year-old Russian widower with kind eyes, was waiting outside. "Your mother asked me to walk you home today," he said quietly, "just to be safe." Clara understood the threat was real, and it was coming that night. $50,000 moved silently from Lance's account to Vanessa's. The trap was being set. 5 days after the poker incident, an extraordinary guest checked into the Astoria Hotel. Ibrahim al-Rashid, Saudi prince, 48 years old, billionaire, renowned collector of historical gems. He arrived for a charity art auction and brought with him the legendary Desert Diamond, a 45-carat rose-pale gem valued at $5 million, with a history dating back to the 15th century. Security was reinforced. The diamond stayed in a special safe in the presidential suite. Only 3 people had access: Ibrahim, the hotel's head of security, and the housekeeping supervisor responsible for the suite. Vanessa, using her administrative contacts, manipulated the schedule. Rosa Ellison was assigned to clean the presidential suite during the prince's 5-day stay. Rosa felt honored but nervous. It was an enormous responsibility. Clara reassured her. "You've cleaned that suite hundreds of times, Mum. Everything will be fine." First day, everything normal. Rosa cleaned meticulously. Ibrahim was courteous, thanking her in British-accented English. Second day, Vanessa visited the suite to verify service quality. Rosa didn't know that Vanessa was studying every detail: the safe's location, Ibrahim's routine, security camera angles. Third day, Ibrahim left for dinner at 7. Rosa entered for final cleaning at 7:30. As usual, cameras showed her entering with her cleaning cart. What the cameras didn't show: Vanessa entering through the service entrance using a cloned badge. 20 minutes earlier, Vanessa, wearing surgical gloves, used a code she'd hacked from the system to open the safe. She took the Desert Diamond, wrapped it in black cloth, and placed it at the bottom of Rosa's work bag, the bag hanging from the cleaning cart in the corridor. Rosa, completely oblivious, finished cleaning, gathered her things, went to the locker room 10:15. Ibrahim returned to the hotel, went directly to the safe, discovered the diamond was missing. Alarm triggered. Hotel in immediate lockdown. All exits blocked. Marcus Chen was summoned. He was pale. Theft of a $5 million item from a Saudi prince was an international relations nightmare. Viktor Kozlov, the security chief, a 55-year-old ex-military man, immediately reviewed cameras and access lists. 3 people had safe access today: the prince, me, and Rosa Ellison. Marcus closed his eyes. No, it can't be. Ibrahim, though furious, remained controlled. Search everyone who had access now. Rosa was still in the locker room when security entered. She was changing clothes to go home. Mrs. Ellison, we need to search your bag. Standard procedure. Of course, no problem. Rosa handed over her bag, confused but cooperative. Victor opened it, searched, and froze at the bottom. Wrapped in black cloth, the desert diamond. No! Rosa went white. That's not mine. I never... Someone put that there, I swear. But nobody was listening. Victor was already reading her rights. Rosa was taken into custody, handcuffed. She was in shock, repeating, I didn't do this. Someone planted this. I swear. I swear. Clara was called from school when she arrived at the hotel. Her mother was being led away in handcuffs. Mom! Clara ran, but security held her back. Clara... Rosa was crying. I didn't do this. You have to believe me. I didn't do this. I know, Mom, I know. But the police car was already pulling away. Sirens cutting through the night. Clara stood there, trembling, tears streaming. Marcus appeared, devastated. Clara, I'll hire the best lawyers. We'll find out what happened, I promise. But Clara barely heard him, because she'd just seen something across the lobby, half hidden behind a marble column. Lance Devereux and Vanessa Monroe, watching, smiling. And in that moment, Clara understood everything. Her eyes met Lance's across the crowded lobby. He raised a champagne glass in silent salute. A mocking toast. Vanessa whispered something in his ear. Both laughed. Something inside Clara. Something her grandfather had planted, tempered by injustice. Forged by humiliation, awakened completely, not anger, cold determination. She wiped her tears, straightened her posture, and looked at Lance with a silent promise in her eyes. Lance stopped smiling, because something in Clara's expression, something cold, calculated, inevitable, reminded him of her words at the poker table. When a man believes he's above the rules, that's when he's already lost the game. Rosa spent the night in a detention cell. Clara couldn't sleep, lying in her mother's empty bed, breathing in the pillow that still smelled of her cheap perfume. Morning, Marcus Chen paid $50,000 bail. Rosa was released, but she was destroyed. It wasn't just the arrest, it was the public humiliation. News was already circulating. Astoria employee accused of stealing $5 million diamond from Saudi prince. Rosa lost her job immediately. The hotel board voted 7-2 for termination. She had 48 hours to vacate the company apartment. Ivan helped them pack their few belongings. They moved to a cheap motel in the Bronx, the Sunset Inn. $45 a night, smell of mold. Constant sound of sirens, suspicious stains on the walls. Rosa was in shock. She spent the entire day lying down, staring at the cracked ceiling, not eating. Clara tried to feed her instant noodle soup. Rosa barely touched it. Mom, you need to eat something. I can't. Rosa's voice was hollow. Everyone thinks I'm a thief, Clara, everyone. I don't think that. And I'm going to prove you're not. Rosa looked at her daughter with dead eyes. How? You're a child, Clara. You have no power, no money, no. I have what they don't have. Clara held her mother's hand. I know the truth, and I'm going to find the proof. Clara had exactly 72 hours until the preliminary hearing. After that, Rosa could be formally indicted and face trial, if convicted, 10 to 15 years in prison. Clara skipped school. For the first time in her life, she lied to the administration, said she had the flu. In reality, she was investigating. She returned to the Astoria Hotel in disguise. Cap, sunglasses, oversized hoodie, entered through the service entrance she knew from accompanying her mother so many times. First, she talked to old employees, Lucia, 52, a housekeeper who'd worked with Rosa for 8 years. Was devastated. Your mother would never take even a towel, Clara. Never. Someone set this up. Did you see anything strange? Anyone different in the corridors? Lucia thought. Then, Vanessa Monroe. She was there on the 3rd day. Said she was going to inspect quality. But she never does that personally. I thought it was strange. Piece 1. Then Clara talked to Dmitri, the IT technician. 28, Russian, who'd always been kind to her. Dmitri, can you show me the security footage from the day of the theft? Clara, that's against the rules. I could be fired. My mother could be imprisoned for 15 years for something she didn't do. Dmitri struggled with himself. Then sighed. 5 minutes, that's all I can give you. They went to the monitoring room when Victor was on break. Clara studied the recordings. 7:10, Vanessa entering the presidential suite wing. Thin bag, 7:30, Rosa entering with cleaning cart, 7:55, Rosa leaving, but something was wrong. Clara asked Dmitri to go back to when Vanessa entered. Look at her bag. Clara pointed at the screen. Vanessa's bag was thin, almost empty. Then, when she left, 20 minutes later, now look, the bag's fuller, and Clara enlarged the image. She's wearing gloves. Dmitri frowned. In the middle of summer. Inside the hotel, piece 2, Clara spent the night researching bank transfers online, using public records and information. Dmitri helped access from his previous job at Union Trust. She found it. Lance made a transfer of $50,000 to Vanessa Monroe exactly 2 days before the theft. Piece 3. But Clara knew it wasn't enough. Vanessa could say it was payment for consulting. The gloves could be explained. She needed a confession or definitive proof. She had a risky idea. On the morning of the 3rd day, she called Lance from a payphone. I want to make another bet, Mr. Devereaux. Silence, then laughter. You didn't learn your lesson. I learned that you're a coward, that you only attack when you have the advantage. Clara kept her voice steady. But if you have courage, meet me, cafe on the corner of 5th and 42nd, noon, alone. Why would I do that? Because I have proof of what you did, and you'll want to make a deal before I take it to the police. Clara was bluffing. She had pieces, but not definitive proof. But she'd learned from her grandfather. A bluff delivered with conviction is indistinguishable from truth. Lance hesitated, curiosity and fear fighting. Noon, I'll be there. Clara hung up, hands trembling. Back at the motel, she found Rosa slightly better. Ivan was there, had brought homemade food, Russian borscht, piroshki. Rosa had eaten a little. There was silent gratitude in her look toward Ivan. I'm going to fix this, Mom. Clara kissed her forehead. Trust me. Rosa held her hand. I always trust you, my daughter. And in that moment, Clara felt the weight of being daughter, investigator, and her mother's only hope. But she didn't waver because her grandfather said, when you're the last line of defense, you can't afford the luxury of weakness. Noon, Monarch Cafe on the corner of 5th Avenue and 42nd Street. Public place, busy, large windows. Clara had chosen deliberately, witnesses everywhere. Lance arrived 10 minutes late, trying to show he was in control. But Clara noticed he was nervous, furtive glances. Hands drumming on the table, he sat, ordered a double espresso, looked at Clara with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. So, little girl, you said you have proof. Clara placed a manila envelope on the table. Lance looked at it, then at her. You can open it. Lance opened with fingers that trembled slightly. Inside, printed photos. First photo, Vanessa entering the presidential suite at 7:10. Thin bag. Second photo, Vanessa leaving at 7:28. Bulky bag, close-up on her hands, surgical gloves. Third photo, bank statement, transfer of $50,000 from Lance to Vanessa. Date, 2 days before the theft. Fourth photo, text conversation between Lance and Vanessa, planning to solve the Clara Ellison problem permanently. Lance's face went grey. How did you... His voice failed. How did I get these? Clara leaned in. Doesn't matter. What matters is what I'm going to do with them. Lance tried to recover composure. These texts are fake. You manipulated them. Want to bet your freedom on that? Clara didn't blink. Because digital forensics will prove they're real, and when they do, you'll get 15 to 20 years. Conspiracy to commit theft, evidence tampering, attempting to frame an innocent person. Lance was sweating. He looked around. All these unknown faces suddenly seemed like judges. What do you want? You're going to the police. Today, you confess everything. Say it was you and Vanessa who planned to plant the diamond. You clear my mother's name. If I do that, I'll go to prison. You will, but if you confess voluntarily, you can make a deal, maybe 3 to 5 years, out in 2 with good behavior. Clara paused. But if I take this evidence first, you'll get 15 years. No deal, no sentence reduction. You're blackmailing me. No, I'm offering you the chance to do the right thing for the first time in your life. Clara's voice was steel. You destroyed my mother's reputation, took our roof, our dignity. Why? Because your ego couldn't accept being defeated by a child. Lance looked away. Something in him, small, suffocated, almost dead, felt shame. If I confess, you'll destroy this evidence. No, Clara was relentless, but I won't release it. You serve your sentence, get out, and you still have a chance to rebuild something. But only if you do this now. You have 1 hour to decide. 1 hour. 1 hour after that, I deliver everything to the NYPD and to the media. Clara stood. So choose, Mr. Devereaux, the dignity of confession or the destruction of exposure. She left the photos on the table and walked out of the cafe. Lance sat there, staring at the evidence of his own malice. 1 hour and 15 minutes later, 17th Precinct Station, Lance Devereaux entered accompanied by a lawyer, asked to speak with the detective responsible for the Ellison case. Detective Sarah Park, 42, homicide veteran, attended. I want to make a full statement, Lance said, voice broken, about the desert diamond theft. Sarah arched an eyebrow. Are you confessing? Yes. The next 2 hours were recorded. Lance detailed everything. How he planned revenge, how he paid Vanessa, how she planted the diamond, how he knew Rosa was innocent from the beginning. When he finished, he was crying, not from remorse, but from fear of what came next. Sarah immediately dispatched a team to arrest Vanessa Monroe. They found her at a luxury spa, receiving a Thai massage. She screamed, resisted, called lawyers, but it was useless. The evidence was irrefutable. Late afternoon, Clara received a call from Marcus. They just arrested Vanessa, and Lance confessed everything. Your mother is cleared, Clara. Clara didn't respond, just collapsed on the motel room floor. Tears she'd held for days finally fell, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were relief. Rosa, who'd been in the bathroom, ran out. Clara, what happened? Clara looked up, face wet, but smiling. It's over, Mom, it's over. Rosa didn't understand. Clara explained everything. The evidence, the cafe, the bluff, the confession. Rosa hugged her daughter so hard it hurt, and both cried from exhaustion, from gratitude, from survival. Ivan appeared half an hour later with official news. The police department had issued a public note apologizing to Rosa Ellison. Ibrahim al-Rashid gave an interview saying he always knew Mrs. Ellison was innocent. No one with her integrity would commit such a crime. Marcus appeared personally at the motel, brought documents. Rosa, the hotel wants you back, with a promotion, general housekeeping supervisor. Salary $68,000 a year, and a proper apartment. Rosa was speechless. And you? Marcus looked at Clara. That scholarship I mentioned, it's approved. Full ride, lifetime, any university in the world. Clara couldn't believe it. She was trembling. But there's one condition, Marcus smiled. You have to promise you'll use that terrifying intelligence for good. Clara laughed through tears. I promise. That night, for the first time in weeks, Clara and Rosa slept in peace, knowing that justice, delayed, costly but real, had finally come. 10 days after the arrests, the New York Police Department held an official press conference. Detective Sarah Park announced, after a complete investigation, we confirm that Mrs. Rosa Ellison was a victim of criminal conspiracy. All charges have been dropped. We offer public apologies for the error. Rosa was present. Beside Clara and Marcus, cameras flashed. Journalists shouted questions, but Rosa maintained dignity, simply saying, "I thank everyone who believed in my innocence, especially my daughter, who never doubted." Clara held her mother's hand. A firm grip, the Astoria Hotel organized an apology dinner, smaller ballroom, more intimate than the fateful gala. 50 guests, employees who'd supported Rosa, Marcus and the board, Ibrahim, who'd insisted on attending, and Ivan. Marcus gave an emotional speech. "Rosa Ellison has worked at this hotel for 12 years, 12 years of impeccable integrity. And when she needed us most, we failed." His voice broke. "I won't apologize with just words. Starting today, Rosa is promoted to General Housekeeping Supervisor, 72,000 annual salary, and..." He paused. "The hotel will create the Employee Legal Defense Fund. No other employee will be left alone if falsely accused." Emotional applause. Rosa stood, trying not to cry. "Thank you for believing, for returning my dignity." She looked at Clara. "And thank you to my daughter, who taught me that truth always prevails, even when the whole world doubts." Ivan applauded louder than anyone. After dinner, Ibrahim asked to speak with Clara and Rosa privately. They went to a private room. "Mrs. Ellison," Ibrahim said in impeccable English, "I come from a culture where honor and reputation are everything. I understand the weight of false accusation." He handed over an envelope. "This is a modest amount to cover the pain you suffered. It's not compensation. Pain has no price. It's recognition." Rosa opened it. "A check for $100,000, she paled. "Mr. Al-Rashid, I can't accept." "You can and you will," he smiled gently. "Use it to give your extraordinary daughter a better life," Rosa cried. Thanked repeatedly, Ibrahim turned to Clara. "And you, young lady," he extended his hand, "you have a rare mind. Don't let the world extinguish it." Clara shook his hand, moved 3 weeks later. Clara did something that surprised even herself. She went to visit Lance at Rikers Island prison. Rosa tried to stop her, but Clara insisted, "I need to do this, Mom. For me, not for him." Ivan accompanied her to the prison. Waited outside, visiting room, metal tables, smell of disinfectant and despair. Lance entered wearing orange uniform, handcuffs on his wrists, thin face, deep dark circles. He sat across from the glass. Picked up the phone. Clara picked up hers. Long silence. "Why did you come?" Lance finally asked. "I don't know," Clara admitted. "I guess I wanted to see if you regretted it." "Regret what?" "Getting caught." Clara studied his face, searched for genuine remorse, didn't find it. "You destroyed my mother, almost destroyed our lives, and you feel nothing." Lance looked away. "I feel," his voice low, "anger at myself for being an idiot, for listening to Vanessa. But you don't feel remorse for what you did to us." Silence. "I thought I would," Lance finally said, "but I just feel anger and emptiness." Clara sighed. She realized he wasn't going to change, not now, maybe never. "Then why did I come?" She stood up. "Wait," Lance tapped the glass. "Please, just tell me, how did you know? How did you know I'd confess?" Clara smiled weakly. "I didn't know. It was a bluff. I had pieces, but no definitive proof of the texts. I used your paranoia against you." Lance blinked, incredulous. "You bluffed?" "I learned from the best." Clara placed the phone on the hook. "My grandfather said, 'A bluff delivered with conviction is indistinguishable from truth.'" She turned to leave. "Clara!" Lance shouted through the glass. She looked back. "You can still change," she said. "But you have to want it. Nobody can do it for you." And then she left, leaving Lance alone with his demons. That night in the new apartment, 2 bedrooms, large windows, safe neighborhood, Rosa prepared a special dinner. Ivan was there helping, Jaden too. He and Clara were getting closer. Long conversations, genuine laughter. Marcus brought the final document, the scholarship contract. Clara signed with trembling hands. MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Oxford, Marcus listed. Anyone you choose, Clara had already decided. MIT, Applied Mathematics and Behavioral Psychology. Like your grandfather, like my grandfather, Rosa hugged her daughter. He'd be so proud. I know, Clara smiled through tears. I feel him here in every decision I made. Ivan raised a wine glass, juice for Clara and Jaden, to new beginnings and to family. Everyone toasted, and for the first time in months there was peace, not perfection. The scars still hurt, but peace, because they learned that justice, when it finally arrives, heals more than time. 2 months after the arrests, an official letter arrived. Clara had been accepted to a MIT, not just accepted, received with honors. The mathematics department had read about the poker case and was fascinated by her application of game theory and behavioral analysis. Early August, preparations for the move began, Clara organizing her minimal belongings. They'd always been few, but now with hope, not scarcity. While organizing her grandfather's drawer, Rosa had kept everything. Clara found a wooden box she'd never seen before. Inside, letters, dozens of them, written by Colonel Arthur Ellison during years of military service. Clara spent the night reading. The letters revealed depths she hadn't known. March 12th, 1987, Berlin. Today I saw a man betray an entire country. Not for money, for ego, I learned. Uncontrolled ego is a weapon of self-destruction. July 4th, 1991, Persian Gulf. Commander made a tactical error. Cost 17 lives, he knew, but didn't admit it. I learned a man who doesn't admit mistakes makes an even bigger one. November 22nd, 2003, already retired, but observing the world, Clara was born today. My granddaughter, I'll teach her to read not just words, but souls, so she'll never be deceived and never deceive, Clara cried, reading the last letter, written a week before he died. Clara, if you're reading this, I've departed, but I leave you with the only gift that matters, the ability to see truth amid lies. Use this for justice, never for revenge, because revenge destroys the avenger as much as the victim. Justice, however, heals both, Clara understood. Every lesson her grandfather taught was preparation. For this moment, to be who she needs to be, Marcus organized a small farewell dinner, not a public event. Just people important to Clara. Rosa, Ivan, now officially dating Rosa, Jaden, Dmitri, Lucia, Sarah Park, who'd developed respect for Clara, and, surprisingly, Ibrahim, who'd made a point of coming from London just for this. Marcus raised his glass. Clara, I grew up in Queens, son of immigrants. My father was a janitor, my mother a seamstress. He paused, emotional. So when I see you, I see my father, my mother, every person society tries to make invisible. But you proved that invisible people are just unseen, not non-existent. Applause, Ibrahim added. In my culture, there's a saying, the true diamond needs no artificial light. It shines by nature. You, young Clara, are a real diamond. Clara moved, thanked everyone, then looked at Jaden, who'd been quiet later on the apartment balcony, just the two of them. You'll forget about me at MIT, Jaden said, trying to sound casual but failing. Impossible, Clara held his hand. You were there when the whole world treated me as a curiosity. You treated me as a person. I always saw you, Jaden said quietly. Since the first day of school, you were the only one who asked genuine questions, not to impress, to understand. They kissed, soft, silent promise to stay close despite distance, last night before departure. Rosa and Clara in the living room, chamomile tea, comfortable silence. Are you scared? Rosa asked. Very, Clara admitted. What if I'm not good enough? What if... Clara, Rosa interrupted, you defeated a poker champion, saved your mother from prison, unmasked a conspiracy. Do you really think differential equations will defeat you? Clara laughed. When you put it that way, you're going to be incredible. Rosa kissed her daughter's forehead. Because you're the daughter of New York's most stubborn cleaning lady and granddaughter of the wisest man who ever existed. And I'm going to make you both proud. You already have. They hugged. long, tight, storing warmth for the cold days to come. Next morning, JFK Airport, Rosa, Ivan, Jaden, Marcus at the farewell. Ivan carried the suitcase, single, small, but full of dreams. Rosa was fighting not to cry. "Call me every day," she made Clara promise. "Every day." Marcus handed over a sealed envelope. "Only open when you feel like you can't, when you're thinking about giving up." Clara stored it in her pocket. Intrigued, Jaden hugged last. "Until Christmas break. Until Christmas break." Clara passed through security, turned one last time, waved. Rosa finally broke down in tears, but they were tears of pride. On the plane, Clara opened Marcus's envelope. Inside, just a card with the phrase, "You've already won the hardest game. Believing in yourself when nobody else did, the rest is just practice." Clara smiled, stored the card, looked out the window as the plane took off, New York getting small below. But she wasn't leaving it behind. She was carrying it. Every lesson, every scar, every victory, because she learned that home isn't a place. It's what you carry inside. Flight 1247, Delta Airlines, JFK to Boston Logan. Clara at the window, watching clouds beside her, an elderly woman reading a magazine, comfortable silence. Clara took out a small photo from her pocket. Her and her grandfather 7 years ago, playing cards at the kitchen table, him smiling, her concentrated. Before the illness, before everything. Memory invaded. Last conversation with her grandfather. Hospital, week before he died. "Grandpa, I couldn't solve the chess problem you gave me." "It wasn't meant to be solved, Clara. It was meant to be understood." "What's the difference?" "Solving is finding an answer. Understanding is knowing why the answer matters." He coughed, weak. "You'll face people who'll try to defeat you, not with chess, with cruelty, with power. How will I win? Not by winning, by understanding." He held her hand. "Understand why they attack. Understand their fear, their ego, their fragility, and you'll always be one step ahead. But what if I use it to hurt? Then you become them." He paused. "Promise you'll use it for justice, not revenge." "I promise." Clara wiped a discreet tear, storing the photo, storing the promise, she reflected. Lance deserved consequences, but did she feel pleasure destroying him? No, she felt relief. She felt justice, but not pleasure. And that, she understood now, was the difference. Boston Airport. Clara took a cab to MIT. Campus revealed itself. Modern architecture mixed with classical. Students everywhere. Vibrant energy of minds in motion. McGregor House dormitory. Room 412. Door open inside. An Indian-American girl. Long dark hair, glasses, organizing books. "Hi!" She turned, smiling. "You must be Clara." "I'm Priya Srinivasan." Clara smiled back. "Looks like we'll be sharing this tiny space for a year. At least," Priya laughed. "I read about you. The poker case. It was incredible." Clara tensed. "I don't want to be known just for that." "Don't worry, everyone here has a story," Priya pointed to herself. "I ran away from India at 14 because my family wanted to marry me off. Arrived in the US with $200 and a backpack. Full scholarship too." Clara felt immediate connection, both survivors, both fighters. "I think we'll get along well." "Definitely." First week of classes, Clara was overwhelmed. Multivariable calculus. Real analysis. Introduction to cognitive science, advanced game theory. Everyone seemed brilliant, everyone seemed to belong, except her. Imposter syndrome hit hard on the third night. Clara was in the library at 2 in the morning, trying to understand a topology problem everyone else found obvious. Tears of frustration started falling. Phone vibrated. Message from Jaden. "How's it going?" "Told you you'd crush it." Clara didn't respond. Because she wasn't crushing it, she was drowning. Another message, Rosa. "My daughter, I know it's hard, but remember what your grandfather said. First day of war always seems like defeat, but war doesn't end on the first day." Clara breathed deeply, wiped tears, returned to the problem. 3 hours later, she solved it. Not because she was genius, but because she didn't give up. Friday night, Priya dragged Clara to a social event. Math club party. Surprisingly fun. With Fibonacci jokes and karaoke, Clara met more people. David from Alabama, mechanic's son, Li Wei from China, first in her family at university, Marcus, not her Marcus, from Brazil, who played beautiful guitar, all with stories, all with struggles, all with doubts. And Clara realized nobody here completely belonged. Everyone was building belonging. 2 weeks later, game theory professor, Dr. Alan Rothstein, asked Clara to stay after class. "Miss Ellison, I read about your case. Fascinating application of game theory in high-risk context. It was more intuition than theory." "Professor, intuition is internalized theory," he smiled. "Have you thought about research on behavioral analysis in competitive environments?" Not yet. Think about it. You have a rare talent. Don't waste it." Clara left the room floating. Someone at MIT, a real professor, thought she had talent. Late September, weekly call with Rosa and Ivan. Now they had dinner together every Friday. Ivan cooked Russian dishes. Rosa was happy, really happy. "How's work, Mom?" "Great. Today I trained 3 new housekeepers. And you know what my first lesson was?" "What?" "Dignity doesn't depend on who you serve. It depends on how you carry yourself." Clara smiled. Rosa had learned too. Ivan took the phone. "Your mother's incredible, Clara. Today she confronted a manager who was mistreating an employee. It was epic. Mom turning rebel, mom turning leader." Ivan laughed. Clara hung up, heart full. Her mother was no longer a victim. She was a survivor, helping others survive. Early October, Clara received a surprise message. "Lance," from prison email. "Clara, I don't expect a response. But I need to say, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about changing. I started therapy here, not for you, for me, because I realized I hate who I became. Maybe in 3 to 5 years when I get out, I'll be a different person, or maybe not, but I'm trying. Thank you for planting that seed, even though I didn't deserve it." Clara read it 3 times, didn't respond, but didn't block, because redemption was possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. Last scene of the chapter, Clara on the dorm balcony, looking at Boston at night. Priya joined her with hot chocolate. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything that happened," Clara sighed. "How I got here." "You got here because you're badass," Priya smiled. "And because you didn't give up. Sometimes I'm afraid I'm not good enough. We all are. But that's the beauty. Nobody's born ready. We build ourselves." Clara toasted with her mug of hot chocolate. "To building then, to building." And that night, for the first time, Clara felt that maybe, just maybe, she belonged. Not because she was perfect, but because she was willing to keep trying, as her grandfather taught. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's continuing when everything in you wants to stop. December, 3 months after arriving at MIT. Clara was transformed, not externally. Still wore the same simple clothes, same humility, but internally there was confidence that hadn't existed before, certainty that she belonged. First semester grades, 3.9 GPA, not perfect, but solid. Dr. Rothstein officially invited her to a summer research project, behavioral analysis in high-risk negotiations. Clara accepted, thrilled. Priya was planning to return to India for the holidays, first time in 3 years. Attempt at family reconciliation. Clara offered emotional support. Jaden visited for the 3rd time. Halloween and Thanksgiving had been memorable. They walked along the Charles River in December cold. Hands intertwined. "You seem different," he observed. "Different how?" "Lighter, like you're carrying less weight," Clara thought. He was right. "I think I finally understood what Grandpa meant about carrying justice. Not revenge. Revenge is weight. Justice is liberation." Jaden kissed her forehead. "Your grandfather created something special in you. He created purpose." An unexpected letter arrived before Christmas. Formal invitation. The National Poker Association wanted Clara as a speaker at a charity event in January. Theme: ethics and integrity in gaming. Clara was torn. She didn't want to be defined by the poker case. But she also felt responsibility to speak about the lessons. She discussed it with Rosa by phone. Do you think I should accept, Mom? I think you should do what your heart tells you. But remember, your story isn't just yours. It's for all the invisible people who need to see that it's possible to win. Clara decided to accept. Christmas in New York. Clara returned home. The apartment was decorated, small tree but full of meaning. Amateur lights that Ivan had installed, smell of home cooking. Ivan was officially living with Rosa, his 2 children. Mikhail, 14, and Anya, 11, from a previous marriage, visited regularly. Clara met them. At first there was shyness, but soon Anya bombarded her with questions about might, Christmas dinner, Rosa, Ivan, Mikhail, Anya, Clara, small but complete. Marcus appeared for dessert, bringing gifts. For Clara, a rare book, first edition of Theory of Games and Economic Behavior by von Neumann. For the future researcher, Clara hugged him. Marcus had become the father figure she'd never had. Jaden was also there, completely integrated into the expanded family. He and Mikhail played video games in the bedroom. Anya taught Clara to make Russian pierogi. Rosa looked around, her kitchen full of people, of laughter, of life, and silent tears fell. "Why are you crying, Mom?" "Because a year ago I was in jail, humiliated, destroyed." She held Clara's hand. "And now I have everything. You always deserved everything." Mom, January National Poker Association event, Waldorf Astoria Hotel. Ironically, ballroom packed with 400 people. Professional players, sponsors, media. Clara was backstage, nervous. Priya had come to support. Postponed return to India to be present. Jaden was also in the audience. Rosa, Ivan, and Marcus in the first row. The presenter announced, "And now, the young woman who redefined what it means to play with integrity, Clara Ellison." Applause. Clara stepped onto the stage. Bright lights, controlled breathing. She looked at the audience and began, "6 months ago, I was in this same type of ballroom, serving drinks, invisible, and a powerful man humiliated me. Bet with my life, and I challenged him." Absolute silence. Everyone knew the story, but hearing it directly was different. "Many said I won by luck, but I didn't win because I had better cards. I won because I understood something my grandfather taught me. The game is never about the cards. It's about understanding people." She paused. "Lance Devereux didn't lose because I was smarter. He lost because he believed power placed him above the rules. Because ego blinded him. Because he underestimated someone he considered invisible." Clara looked at Rosa. "My mother taught me that dignity doesn't depend on how much you earn. It depends on how you carry yourself. And when someone tries to take your dignity, you don't just fight. You show everyone that dignity was never theirs to take." Applause began, but Clara raised her hand. "But this story isn't about revenge. It's about justice, and there's a difference. Revenge destroys. Justice rebuilds. Revenge feeds hatred. Justice feeds hope." She breathed deeply. "So if you're someone who's ever been invisible, if someone's ever told you that you don't matter, that you don't belong, that you have no right, I'm here to say you exist, you matter, and the fact that someone doesn't see you doesn't mean you have no power." Final pause, firm voice. "My grandfather said, when you learn to read people, you never play alone, because you see their souls, and no soul is truly invisible," she concluded. "So thank you, not for applauding me today, but for remembering that every game has rules. And the most important rule is, human dignity is non-negotiable." The ballroom erupted in ovation, standing ovation. Rosa was crying. Marcus, too. Ivan applauded forcefully. Jaden whistled. Clara descended from the stage, embraced by dozens of people, but she only wanted to reach her mother. They hugged in the middle of the ballroom, everything they'd been through, the humiliation, the arrest, the fight, the victory, concentrated in that embrace. "You were perfect," Rosa whispered. "I learned from the best." 3 months later, April, Clara received a letter. Lance had been released on good behavior, served only 8 months of a 3-year sentence. But with time in preventive detention and reduction, got out earlier, he wrote, Clara, I won't ask for forgiveness again because I know I don't deserve it. But I want you to know, I started a mentorship program for at-risk youth, teaching poker as a tool for logic and strategy, not to win money, to teach that decisions have consequences. It's small, but it's my way of trying to fix what I broke. I don't expect absolution, but I hope one day to be a person my past version would hate because that old version deserved to be hated. Clara responded for the first time. Lance, redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a different future. Keep trying, not for me, for you, she sent it. And finally, after months, felt the cycle had closed completely. Late May, end of first year at MIT, Clara was on the balcony with Priya, who'd partially reconciled with family. Slow but real process. They watched sunset over Boston. What do you want to do with your life? Priya asked. Clara thought, then smiled. I want to use math and psychology to help people make better decisions. Maybe work with international negotiations or conflict mediation or save the world, save some pieces of it, Clara laughed. One game at a time. Priya raised her soda can to the world saver. One game at a time, Clara toasted, to the survivor, always survivor. Always. They drank. Comfortable silence, sound of city in motion below, entire future ahead. And Clara felt, for the first time without doubt, that she'd found her purpose. Not to be famous, not to be rich. To use what her grandfather taught to illuminate the invisible. To show that every soul has power, even when the world insists it doesn't. Final scene. Clara alone that night. Looking at her grandfather's photo, she whispered, I kept the promise, Grandpa. I used it for justice, not revenge. And in that moment, she swore she heard his voice in the wind. I know, my girl. I always knew. Can you imagine how many invisible people in the world need to hear that their dignity cannot be stolen? That they have power they don't even know exists? Share this story with someone who needs to remember that the game is never about the cards. It's about the courage to continue when everyone says you've already lost. When you learn to read people, you never play alone, because you see their souls, and no soul is truly invisible.